want to tell you about the exact moment I understood I'd been lied to my whole life about fear. I was 72 years old, climbing a steep little staircase street up into one of the communities here in Rio de Janeiro, a favela, the kind of place the news back home had taught me. My entire life was nothing but danger and death, and every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around. My heart was going, my mouth was dry. I was reading every doorway and every shadow the way 38 years driving a city bus taught me to read trouble. And I got to the top, to a little house with the door open and music coming out, and it was a child's birthday party. Pink balloons, a folding table with a homemade cake, grandmothers fanning themselves, kids running everywhere, a man turning chicken on a little grill. And before I could even get my bearings, a little girl, maybe 6 years old, walked right up to this big, scared old stranger, took my hand and pulled me to the table and handed me the first slice of her cake. The first slice, before the grown-ups. And I stood there on that hill with a paper plate shaking in my hand, and I thought, Otis, you have been afraid of the wrong things your entire life. My name's Otis Freeman. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm 75 now, and I live in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on about $1,300 a month. And I'm going to talk to you straight today about the one thing every single American asks me about, the thing the people who love you back home lie awake terrified about. Is it safe? What about the favelas? Aren't you scared? I'm going to give it to you honest, both hands, the good and the bad, no sugar and no scare, because I spent my whole working life around what people call dangerous, and I have learned the difference between real danger and the fears somebody sold you. So you stay with me to the end, because the part that'll actually keep you safe down here is the part most people get exactly backwards. But let me back up, because you can't understand that man on the hill unless you know the man behind the windshield. I drove a city bus in Baltimore for 38 years. Same city, every kind of route, every kind of neighborhood, every hour of the day and night. And let me tell you what that job actually is. It's a job in reading people. 8-10 hours a day, every soul in that city climbing up my steps, and you learn to read a person in about a half a second. Who's having a bad day, who's a little off, who's trouble, who just needs somebody to be kind to them. I saw the best of that city, and I saw the worst of it through that glass. I got robbed twice. I broke up fights. I also drove a lot of good people home from a lot of long days and learned most folks, anywhere, are just trying to get where they're going. Let me give you a for instance, because it matters to everything I'm about to tell you. One night, late route, near empty bus, a young man got on with his hood up and his hand jammed deep in his pocket, and everything about him set off every alarm I had. The old me, the scared me, would have tensed up and treated him like a threat. But 38 years had taught me to look closer, and what I saw under that hood wasn't a predator. It was a terrified kid who just had something bad happen to him, shaking, close to tears. I talked to him low and easy, the way you'd talk to a spooked animal, and rode him to his stop, and he got off and said, "Thank you, mister," in a voice about to break. I'd had him completely wrong in that first half second. And I learned that night that fear makes you read people wrong, and reading people wrong is how good men end up doing ugly things. That lesson is the whole reason I could come to Rio and actually see it for what it is. That windshield was my education. It made me calm and it made me watchful, and those two things together, calm and watchful, turn out to be the only two things that actually matter for staying safe anywhere on this earth. Hold on to that. We'll come back to it. I married Gloria when I was 26, 41 years. She was a school cafeteria lady, fed half of East Baltimore at one time or another, and she had a laugh that could fill a room and a way of seeing straight through me. We raised 2 boys, and then, 6 years ago, a stroke took her, fast, no warning, and the world I knew went quiet. For 2 years after, I barely left that house. I'd set 2 cups out of 41 years of habit and pour the second one down the sink. A man can keep right on breathing and still go quiet inside, and nobody driving past your house can see it. I was a healthy enough man on paper, but I was going out slow, like a street light on a timer, and somewhere in me I knew it. My boys are grown and good men, one in Atlanta, one still in Baltimore, but they've got their own lives and their own families, and a widowed old bus driver in a row house in Baltimore is a man with a whole lot of empty hours and a pension that don't stretch the way the cost of everything keeps climbing. And I'll be honest with you about Baltimore because it matters to the safety part. The neighborhood I retired in had gone hard over the years. There were blocks near me I wouldn't walk after dark, corners I knew to avoid, the sound of sirens most nights, and a couple times gunfire close enough to put me on the floor of my own living room. I had bars on my windows, I had a steel door, and I want you to really hear this, because it's the whole point of what I'm about to tell you. I was a frightened man in my own country, in my own city, behind bars in my own house, years before I ever thought about Brazil. So when Americans clutch their chest and ask me how I can stand to live somewhere dangerous, I have to laugh a little, sadly, because they have no idea what I was already living in. My Social Security and my little pension came to around $1,300 a month after they took out for the medical, and in Baltimore, that's a tight, scared, shrinking kind of life. I'd sit in that barred-up house and do the math, and the math said, you stay in here, you keep your head down, you watch the news tell you to be afraid, and you get old and you die behind a steel door. And one of my old bus driver buddies, a fella named Mike, well, no, Mike's the Chicago cop, I'll get to him. One of my buddies had a cousin who'd retired down to Brazil, and the numbers I started hearing sounded made up. A man living on a Social Security check near the beach, eating fresh food, out among people. And I'll be straight about the mistake I made in my head before I came, because it's the same one most folks make. I thought, well, it's cheap, but it's got to be even more dangerous than what I'm living in now. I figured I was trading one kind of danger for a worse one, just warmer. That is not what happened, not even close. But I didn't know that yet. Let me tell you about landing, because it shook me. You come into Rio at night and the heat hits you coming off the plane like a wet towel across the face. And the ride in from the airport runs you right alongside the big communities, the favelas climbing the hillsides, lights stacked all the way up into the dark, and motorbikes slicing between the cars. And I sat in the back of that taxi with my whole body tight, thinking every bit of fear they'd ever sold me, thinking, Otis, you've gone and done it now. You've moved straight into the thing you were running from. I'd rented a little place up in Penha. That's the north part of the city, regular working people, a famous old church up on a rock, and yes, big communities all around. Not the postcard, the real thing. And those first couple weeks I sat in that apartment as tight and watchful as I'd ever been in Baltimore, waiting for the danger I'd been promised. And the danger didn't come. What came instead that first week was a woman at the corner store who saw the big lost American buying all the wrong things and quietly walked me through the shop. What came was the bar owner who started setting aside a stool for me. What came was a teenager who saw me squinting at a bus map and didn't just point. He walked me to the right stop and waited with me until the bus came, for no reason, expecting nothing. I kept bracing to be tested, robbed, hustled. Instead, I kept getting helped, over and over, by people who had a lot less than me. And it honestly confused me because it didn't match one single thing I'd been told my whole life. It took me a good while to understand that the helping was the normal thing here, and the fear I'd hauled in with my suitcases was the foreign thing. And here's the first thing I need every American to write down, because it took me a while to feel it in my body and not just hear it in my head. The fear they sell you about this place is louder than the actual danger of this place. I'm not telling you there's no danger. I'll talk straight about the real risks because your safety matters to me too much to lie. But I am telling you that I have walked these streets for 3 years now, an old black man on a small check, and the texture of daily life here is ordinary people being ordinary and mostly being kind. Kids in school uniforms, old folks at the bus stop, women selling fruit, men playing dominoes. The danger is real and specific and avoidable. The fear is general and constant and mostly imaginary. And learning to tell those two apart is the single most important skill you'll develop down here. A bus driver could have told you that. Calm and watchful. Not scared. Watchful. Now let me talk about money, because $1,300 a month is on the lean side and I make it work, and it cuts both ways. The big costs are low. I rent a 1-bedroom in a regular Penha neighborhood. Not the beach, a real barrow. And after the exchange, it's a fraction of even my barred-up Baltimore row house. A plate lunch at a poor kilo place where you pay by the weight of your plate, rice, beans, a little meat, some greens, $5, $6, and I walk out full. Coffee and a hot buttered roll at the corner bar in the morning, $1 or $2. The bus, almost nothing. And at my age, there's a senior fare that's near about free. A barber, a few bucks. Anything that's a person doing something for another person. That's where a small check stretches a long, long way down here. But the other side, and I won't skip it. Anything imported costs the same as home or worse, because the taxes on it are fierce. American brands, electronics, a car, you'll bleed for them, sometimes double. So if you come down here trying to live exactly like an American, just with palm trees, you'll spend American money and be miserable doing it. The ones who make it on a check like mine flip the whole thing. You eat what's local and in season, you shop the Fera, the open street market, you take the bus, you let the brand names go. Do that and a man lives a full, decent life on $1,300 a month, and I'm standing proof. Let me break my month down because numbers beat opinions. Rent's about half my check. Food, eating fresh and local and with Sonia cooking, runs me a few hundred Rs a week. The bus is pennies. My phone's a few dollars. And I still come out the end of the month with a little breathing room. Me, a retired bus driver with breathing room, which I never once had behind that steel door in Baltimore. The number on the check isn't the story. How you choose to live once you're here is the whole story. And here's the money part nobody tells you till you're standing at a cash machine with a line building behind you. The ATMs here have daily limits lower than you'd figure, and they charge you a fee on this end while your bank charges another on that end, so you learn to pull the most you can, less often. There's a tax they put on a lot of foreign card business down here, the IOF, that adds up if you're not watching. So write this down. It's free, and it'll save you a world of grief. Before you ever get on the plane, call your bank and tell them you're moving to Brazil, or the first cash you pull, they'll freeze your card thinking it's stolen, and now you're stuck 5,000 miles from your own money. Carry 2 cards from 2 different banks. Use a proper transfer service for the bigger money, fairer rate than a bank wire. And keep real cash at home, more than you think, because the power goes out, and when it does, the card machines go dark, and paper money is the only thing that'll buy you supper. And that dollar to real rate becomes a living thing in your life. Some months it's in your favor and you feel rich. Some months it swings and your grocery money shrinks overnight. So never budget right up to the edge. Leave yourself room to breathe. And I'll tell you why I'm so hard about 2 cards from 2 different banks. A buddy down here had just the one, and his bank back home saw a charge come through in Rio and froze it cold on a Friday night, dead sure it was stolen. And there he was the whole weekend, no cash, no card, no human being to call until Monday morning. Don't be that man. 2 cards, 2 banks, and real paper money kept at the house for when the lights go out, because down here they do. And let me get the heat and the clock out of the way, because that's the daily life part that whipped me my first year. I thought Baltimore summers were hot. This is a wet heat that sits on you most of the year, has you through 2 shirts before noon. I fought it at first, kept my Baltimore schedule running around at midday, and I was wore out all the time. An old hand set me straight. Otis, you're running on Baltimore time in a tropical city. Nobody's out in this sun at noon. There's a reason. And he was right. You do your living early, in the cool of the morning, your walk, your market, your errands. Then you slow down in the heat of the day, shade and rest, and the city comes alive again in the evening. Everybody out on the street talking late. I had to throw out a lifetime of hurry. And there's what they call the Brazilian hour. A man says 2 o'clock. He means somewhere in the afternoon. For a bus driver, a man whose whole life ran on a schedule down to the minute, this about broke my brain at first. But I had it backwards. They're not failing to respect time. They're respecting the person in front of them more than the clock. I learned to carry a newspaper and quit packing my days so tight. And I learned the words that save your sanity down here. Calma, vai dar tudo certo. Easy now. It'll all work out. And mostly, it does. Now we get to it. The safety, the favelas, the thing this whole video is about. And I'm going to give it to you the way a man who spent 38 years reading danger for a living would give it to you, because the internet is full of 2 kinds of liars on this subject, and I don't want to be either one. The first kind of liar tells you Rio is a war zone, that you'll be robbed or worse the minute you step off the plane, that the favelas are hell on earth. That's a lie, and it's usually told by people who've never set foot here, and it's the same lie that gets told about the worst neighborhoods in America by people who never lived in them either. The second kind of liar tells you it's all fine, it's paradise, just relax, don't worry about a thing. That's a lie too, and it'll get you hurt. The truth is the hard, grown-up thing in the middle, and here it is, held in both hands at once. Rio has real, serious crime, and you must respect it. And also, millions of ordinary people live their entire lives here in peace. And most days, for most people, in most places, nothing happens. Both of those are true at the very same time. The whole skill of living here is holding both of them in your head and acting wisely on both. So let me give you the real rules. The ones that actually work, from a man who learned them the hard way long before Brazil. Number 1, and this is the big one, you don't flash what you've got. I don't wear a watch worth stealing. I don't pull a fancy phone out on a quiet street. I don't walk around looking like a rich, confused tourist. I dress plain, like the working man I am, and I keep what's valuable out of sight. In this city, looking like you've got nothing worth taking is 90% of your safety. Number 2, you stay calm and watchful, never scared and frozen, and never proud and reckless. You read the street the way you'd read the weather. You walk like you know where you're going, even when you don't. The day I stopped looking like a frightened lost tourist and started looking like a tired old man on his way to the market who belonged there, that's the day I stopped being a target. Number 3, you learn the city block by block because there are streets perfectly fine at noon that you simply do not walk at night, and the locals know exactly which is which, so you ask them, and then you actually listen and do what they say. Number 4, you carry a cheap second phone and a little fold of give-up money because if it ever does happen, you hand it over, immediately, politely, no argument, no hero nonsense. Nothing in your pockets is worth your life, And I drove a bus long enough to tell you the people who get hurt are almost always the ones who decided to fight over a wallet or a phone. You give it up, you walk away breathing, you replace the phone. That's the deal. Now, the favelas, the communities on the hills, because this is where Americans carry the most fear and the most ignorance, and I had a full load of both when I got here. Listen to me. Real families live in those communities, working people, church-going grandmothers, kids doing homework. Some of the warmest, most generous, most decent people I have ever met in my life live up on those hills. And remember, I'm a man who knew a hard neighborhood back home, so I don't say that lightly. The poverty is real, and yes, some of those communities are controlled by people involved in things you do not want any part of, and that is also real. But the rule is simple, and it's the same rule any sensible person follows anywhere. You don't go wandering into a place you don't know, gawking like a tourist with a camera around your neck, treating people's homes like a zoo. You go when somebody who lives there invites you, for a reason, and you go as a guest with respect, and you behave like you've got some home training. That little girl's birthday party I told you about at the start, I was up there because Sonia's family lives in that community, and they invited me and I went as a guest. And I have never in my life been made to feel more welcome than I was on that hill. The fear I carried up those stairs was something America put in me, and it had almost nothing to do with the actual people who live there. And let me be real clear, so nobody twists my words, I am not telling you to go treat a favela like a tourist attraction or to go wander up some hill on your own to prove how brave you are. That's not respect, that's foolishness, and it's exactly the kind of thing that gets a clueless gringo in trouble and gives the rest of us a bad name. Some of those communities have rules and realities I will never fully understand, and a wise man knows the edge of what he knows and stays inside it. What I'm telling you is narrower and truer than favelas are safe, or favelas are dangerous. I'm telling you the people are people, overwhelmingly good like people everywhere, and that the cartoon monster America painted in your head is a lie. And that when you're invited in with respect, you'll find more genuine humanity per square foot up on that hill than in half the rich places I've ever set foot. You hold the respect and the caution at the very same time. That's the whole thing. But here's the thing I most need you to hear, the thing people get exactly backwards. The biggest threats to most older Americans down here are not the dramatic ones. It's not the favela, and it's not the stick-up on the corner. Those you can mostly avoid with the rules I just gave you. The things that actually take older foreigners down are quieter. It's the scam that comes with a warm smile. It's the woman or the business partner who's after your pension, not your life. It's getting drunk and careless. It's the slip in the bathroom with no family around to find you. It's your own loneliness making you reckless. The Hollywood danger gets all your attention, while the real danger walks right up and shakes your hand. So, spend your fear wisely, respect the street, sure, but watch your wallet and your heart even closer. I've watched it happen to men I know. One fella spent a small fortune on a fancy apartment in a guarded tower, cameras, a doorman, felt very safe, and then turned around and signed away 3 times that much to a smiling friend with a business idea, robbed blind without a single lock ever being broken. Another good man fell down his own stairs alone and lay there the better part of a day because he'd kept everybody at arm's length and had nobody to check on him. And both of them, to their last day, were still nervous about walking to the corner store. They armored the wrong door. Don't you armor the wrong door. Let me run quick through the practical stuff that keeps you safe in the other ways. The paperwork, because people wave at this, and it's what can get you sent home. You come in on a tourist stamp, 90 days, stretch it toward 180 in a year, and a lot of fellas just live like that, running to the border to reset it. But get yourself a CPF, the taxpayer number from day one. Without it, you can't rent right, can't get a real phone plan, can't function. And if you mean to stay, look hard at the proper retirement visa. Brazil has one for retirees who can show steady income coming in every month, and it ends the border runs. The federal police office will test your soul. Take a number, sit under a fan that just moves the hot air, and the list of what they want is the start of the conversation, not the end. But getting angry is the dumbest thing you can do, because that clerk holds your whole life in Brazil in her hands and she's got all day and you don't. And you show up early, every paper in triplicate, dress decent, be kind, and the same office that was a brick wall turns almost pleasant. Your attitude is your currency in this country, and I learned that driving a bus, you'd be amazed how different the whole world treats a man who's patient and kind versus one who's huffing and entitled. And the health, because there's no Medicare here and your American insurance does just about nothing for you in Brazil. There's the public system, the SUS, free even for you, with good people in it, but stretched thin and the lines can be long. So most of us who can manage it carry a little private plan, a plano de saúde, shockingly cheap by American standards, or just pay cash at a private hospital, a fraction of back home. Get that sorted before you need it, not after. I had a scare my second year, my blood pressure put me down, and it was Sonia, who I barely knew at the time, who got me to a hospital and stayed and translated and filled out the forms my shaking hands couldn't. A few $100s, 2 nights, good care, nurses who held my hand and laughed with me. That same night uninsured in Baltimore would have been a 5-figure nightmare. The cost was a relief. The kindness is the thing that knocked me flat. And I have to give you the warning about the scam because, like I said, that's the real danger. Lonely is the most expensive thing you can be down here. There's a certain kind of person who can smell a lonely old foreigner with a pension, and they will become your best friend, fill up all that empty, and then, gentle, never pushy, there'll be an opportunity. A business, a guest house, a sure thing. Just needs a little capital. Wouldn't it be beautiful for us to do it together like family? I've watched good men hand over everything to a beautiful story. So the rule, you go slow. You never put money into something you can't run yourself. You never use the other man's lawyer. You get your own. And you keep your savings out of reach of any story, no matter how sweet, for your first couple years. And on property, yes, a foreigner can legally own a home here in his own name, and that's real and good, but you buy it right, clean title at the cartorio, your own lawyer, your name on the deed, and you never, ever put it in somebody else's name because love or trust talked you into it. The kindness here is real, and so is the math. Both at once. Now let me tell you about Sonia, because she's the best thing that came of all this. She's a widow, 67, a retired nurse's aide, raised her kids mostly alone, and she has the steadiest, warmest, most no-nonsense heart of anyone I've met since Gloria. She's the one whose family was up on that hill. And here's how I knew she was the real thing. When a slick fella came around once with an opportunity, she got between me and him like a mother hen, told me flat not to give that man a dime. She wasn't after my little check. She was guarding it from the ones who were. That's how you tell. The real ones protect what you've got. The wrong ones find reasons you should spend it. And falling for somebody again at 72, I didn't think it was in the cards after Gloria. But to be with Sonia is to be taken in by a whole world of people. Her kids, the grandkids, her old mother, cousins, neighbors who are family too. Because down here, you don't marry a person. You marry a family. A big one. And that's where you've got to be wise, because an American who says yes to everybody gets bled dry, and one who says no to everybody ends up alone and resented. So Sonia and I drew our lines together early, and we hold them with love. We help her mother, fully. That's just honor. We helped put a grandbaby through a course, because school is the one thing that truly changes a family's luck here. But we don't bankroll grown folks' schemes, and we're not an ATM for every emergency. And when we say no, we say it warm, together, and we never shame anybody. She handles most of it because she can read who truly needs help and who's just trying their luck in a way I never could. That's the real gift of a good partner down here. She keeps you from being either a sucker or a fool, and a foreigner alone can't help being one or the other. Let me give you one example of how that works in real life, because it's the practical heart of it. A few months after Sonia and I got close, a relative of hers came to me, not to her, which should have been my first clue, with a hard luck story and a number only the kind American could fix. And the old lonely me would have paid it on the spot just to be liked. But Sonia and I had already drawn our line together, so I said, warm as I could, that I cared about him, but that money in our house goes through both of us, and that he ought to sit down with Sonia. He never mentioned it again because it was never a real emergency. It was a test, the kind that gets quietly run on every new foreigner. And passing it, kindly, without shaming the man, earned me more standing in that family than any handout ever could have. Draw your line early, draw it with love, and then hold it. Let me tell you about the life now, the everyday of it. I'm up early, before the heat, coffee strong and good. I walk down to the feira when it's on, the open market, and the vendors know me now, save me the good mangoes, tease my rough Portuguese, and I'll tell you, trying counts for more than getting it right down here. Sonia cooks, and I have fallen in love with the food. Feijoada on a Saturday till you can't move, fresh fish, farofa, those little cheese rolls, acai thick and cold. There's a botequim on my corner where the cold beer comes in little bottles wrapped to stay freezing, and the old men argue about football like the world depends on it. And I'm a Flamengo man now because my neighborhood is, and when there's a big match, the whole city roars at once and you can stand on your own street and know the score by the sound. And up on that hill, on a Sunday, there's pagode, samba, a circle of folks playing and singing and dancing, the grandmothers and the kids, and the big old American who can't dance a lick. All of it. And nobody up there ever once made me feel like anything but family. There's a richness to the plain days here I never had behind that steel door. And let me paint you my favorite one. New Year's. My very first one here. Sonia took me down to the beach with what felt like the whole city, every single soul of us dressed head to toe in white, and at the stroke of midnight the entire shoreline went up in fireworks and people waded into the ocean to jump 7 little waves for luck. A 72-year-old bus driver from Baltimore, a man who used to lie down on his own living room floor when the shooting started outside, standing in the warm Atlantic at midnight in a white shirt, jumping waves with a good woman's hand in his, making a wish. I hadn't made a wish since Gloria passed. Standing in that water, I realized I'd quietly stopped believing I was even allowed to want anything anymore. And the wish I made was just, more of this. Lord, just let me have more of this. Now I promised you honesty, so here's the hard part straight. The heat never lets up and it gets harder as you age, not easier. The bureaucracy will test your soul. The power goes out, the internet quits, the streets flood in the big rains, and you'll want a backup plan and a sense of humor and the safety thing. Even with all I've told you, you never fully switch off your awareness, and that low hum of watchfulness is a real cost, even for a man who carried it his whole life. And there's the saudade, that deep, aching kind of missing. There's no clean word for it in English. For my country, my language, my Gloria's grave I can't visit, my boys, my grandkids growing up without me there. That one never fully goes away. You just learn to carry it. So who's this life for? Not the man running from his problems. They fly down with you, just sweatier. Not the man who needs everything fast and efficient and his way. He'll lose his mind in a month. And not the man who's going to come down here scared. treating every Brazilian like a suspect and every hillside like a war zone, because that man insults the very people who'd have taken him in, and he ends up alone and bitter in a bar, blaming the country that opened its arms to him. But the man who can come with respect, who can be calm and watchful instead of scared, who can take people as they come and slow all the way down, there's a richness here money can't buy back home at any price. Here's where I land, after all of it. They sold me fear my whole life. They sold me fear about my own city, fear about my own neighbors, and then they sold me fear about this place too, sight unseen. And I bought it. For 72 years I bought it. And then a 6-year-old girl on a hillside in a place I'd been taught to fear handed me the first slice of her birthday cake, before the grown-ups, just because I was a guest and a stranger, and that's how she was raised. And it cracked something open in me that fear had kept shut my whole life. We trade so much away in America. We lock ourselves behind steel doors and bars and call it safety. And we end up safe and alone and afraid anyway. And some evenings, up on that hill with Sonia's people, music going, a cold drink in my hand and the whole city spread out and glittering below us, I am not so sure we ever understood what safety even was. That little girl and that first slice of cake, I think about it more than she'll ever know. Because it took me 72 years and 5,000 miles to learn that the thing I'd been most afraid of my whole life was, more often than not, just people. Just people, living, being kind, sharing what little they had with a scared old stranger. I had to fly to the other side of the world, to the exact place they warned me about, to finally stop being afraid. And I think that, learning this late, the difference between real danger and the fear somebody sold you, I think that's worth more than anything I left behind. Dramatized story told in the style of the channel, for storytelling and entertainment.